So we started off, we'll start with the confessional half. So for example, one of the core things was, staff perspective on things, because obviously our role, as we were talking about, is to keep students happy.
Exactly.
I was using one example of something that I was working up to. We have this film screening on Fridays for our first year script writing students, and I designed the year. It was 19 slots. I needed to make sure that obviously we covered the right genres, the decades, the directors, wanted to be populist, get bums on seats, etc. And then a female colleague said the other month, well, it's very male-centric. And I thought, oh no, but I thought I'd covered everything. So of course that opened my eyes. And so I'm using this as a little microcosm because it just emphasizes our philosophy, whereas, as soon as you're consciously aware of it, you say, okay, this is an easy fix. Next year's screening, in addition to covering that, it's an easy thing to actually solve. We'll come back to the kind of quick fixes in a bit, because I think it is possible for quick fixes. Do you want to talk about staff?
Yeah, so another issue we looked at was staff training, and how firstly there's like a general lack of awareness. So staff don't think their curriculums are quite inclusive, they don't have that feel. There's also a lack of consequences, so as RESH was saying, for his screening, if he did just do 19 action films, no one would tell him off against it, so for the same way, staff don't have any consequences for not including BAME material on their curriculars. And then the next point we were looking at was hiring policies. And this, generally speaking, so RESH gave the example, in the script writing department, they have 3 male tutors, I think. So, firstly enough, they need to address the gender gap, so they're hiring female staff. But also, just generally speaking, apart from RESH, I don't think I've ever seen a black or Asian tutor in the media framework, so I think that's a big issue. Another thing we were talking about was maybe we could do like a screening process before the curricula is agreed. So currently staff are going through curriculars for the next year, and when you're an undergrad, before you come to uni, they give you a package full of several things. Fill out this form before you do that, fill out this form. What if there was a form saying, here's your curriculum for this year, what do you think of your curriculum, is it inclusive? And you could pose those same questions to alumni, for example. So this again ties to just having like a really good student-staff dialogue. So what we're doing now, that's great, we've got a little BAME society, that's awesome. Maybe if we could increase that dialogue, have more meetings, for example, have, something along those lines. And
how would you widen that dialogue, that participative dialogue?
I think you need to get more students on board, because at the end of the day, the uni wants to cater for the students, and it's a mutual relationship. They keep us happy, we give them good results, and then they're happy. So more students need to be brought on board. So I think that is maybe an issue, a question of looking at statistics of which students you brought here, identify who's from what nationality, and ask if they want to join this dialogue. I think that's quite a big thing. And
the staff?
And the staff, yeah, we do the same thing with them. Look at their nationalities, get them on board. Wherever they're from, that's really good. That's fine. Just get them down to join this dialogue. And the final criticism we were looking at is, or something we can do, is these conferences. So tutors are going abroad and they're conducting whatever they are conducting. Maybe we could tie some BAME stuff onto that. So say if a tutor's going to Boston or New Zealand.
This was tying into the discussion of, when you've got anything like this, it's about ensuring that you're tapping into human nature. Human nature is everyone's busy, everyone has a job to do, and as we talked about earlier, it's having to try to get through the day, trying to get through what we've got to get through, and you want us to do something else as well. Yeah. So it's about trying to get it to work within pre-existing structures first, and then adding additional things. So again, the example is, every year the university spends thousands upon thousands of pounds on conferences. Well, why are we not, if you want to go to a conference, in addition to doing that paper, in addition to having that publication, you need to do X, Y, Z to do with BAME or et cetera, et cetera. So there are certain things that we can do, which I think would would assist, but at the same time not cost as much money as people might think, or indeed add extra things to their workload, which is already busy as it is. But again, you know, in terms of, are we moving on to the aspirational half?
Yeah.
I think there are some positive things that we could look at. I actually wrote this. I didn't get time to discuss it because I thought about it just as we were finishing. BAME, the media production course, which restarted again around 3-4 years ago. If you look at the student breakdown of that actual course, it's phenomenally diverse. You know, I'm lucky enough to teach their first years. I do a 10-week beginner's guide to script writing. It's like being in London. So it's great, you know, so all skin colours, all nationalities, etc., etc. You know, quite different from the majority of other courses in the university.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a good model for us to look at first and say, well, what are they doing? You know, whether is it conscious or unconscious, but something is working because they're all coming from all parts of England, all parts of the world. So let's do it. That would be my first step, analysing how's that course getting it to work. Did you want to talk about the society? BAME?
So other good stuff we've done, for example, setting up this BAME society has, you know, enabled a small student staff dialogue to start off, which is great because Dom's looking at the problems with himself as a tutor, tutors as a general. Why do they not have this awareness? What can they do to fix it? And obviously people like me and Martha are offering up our advice and our opinions, which is great. So other good things, you know, Dom's been leading the group well. So in order to keep that going, maybe we could have more student and staffs join this BAME society as a whole, because as Dom's showcasing, I think just generally speaking, you don't have to be black and Asian to be part of the society. I think you just have to believe in this issue and want to evoke change to be a member of it. So other things we're doing well, or how we know we're doing well, is we know we're doing well from our perspective if the curriculum's changed, because personally that's what me and RESH were discussing, was the problems with the curriculum. So that's how we know we're doing well if it gets changed. And how could we maybe do this is via Muse.
Well, again, just in my career, it's always about, you know, how can we make it work with what we've got at the moment before we start spending more money? We have Muse. We have these questions 2 times an academic year. We ask these questions to the students, which are anonymous. I'm not going to say that word, anonymous. So we change the questions. We add a question, and so not only do we get the perspective from the BAME students, but we get it from all the students as to where we sit, so as to where they sit as well. So again, I think that would be work. So, did you want to talk about that?
So this part now, another aspirational half we're going to go through. So these are solutions to the problems we discussed earlier. So for example, the screening thing, in order to overcome that, include more materials from world cinema. If the hiring policies is an issue, have more diverse lecturers. If staff training is an issue, well, let's give them more training on inclusive curricula. Teach them what an inclusive curriculum is and how they can, you know, relate that to students. So back to hiring policies, and this is both for the uni and also for the industry as a whole. Are there existing models on bridging the gap? So one thing me and Resh were talking about was the whole thing with the gender inequality in the industry and how they've been overcoming that using different models and different things. Maybe we could use, you know, the gender issue to get models for ourselves with the BAME issue, how we can, you know, readdress those issues.
Basically, we've been saying, you know, that's an ongoing fight. It's still not where it needs to be. I was using my career as an example. You know, for the last 20+ years, it's the norm for me. You know, the majority of my core bosses over the years, including right now, are women. You know, it just is what it is. You know, it's, you know, like, you know, whether, you know, commissioning at Channel 4, deputy director of programs, my immediate boss is female, and it's no big deal. It just was what it was. But it's still ongoing. However, over the last 60, 70+ years it's been going on, there have been some key wins across the decades. What were they? How did they achieve this? And again, this is what we're talking about in terms of we could use that as a model, because it's getting there. It's not there where it needs to be, but at least it's making more progress. What BAME is, which is going backwards. So that's that one as well.
Yeah, and other things to look at. So RESH is currently, for the 2017-18 Open Days, looking at having a diversity checklist for each program. just to make sure each program is teaching stuff that's diverse. So other solutions we have to these previous problems is, so the whole thing having the student-staff dialogue, well, let's have more meetings between students and staff. Maybe if actual having in-person meetings is an issue, let's conduct more surveys. I mean, it's cheap, well, you don't have to pay for it, I assume. You can just do it online and you can ask undergrads coming to the uni, what do you think of the curriculum? Or alumni leaving the uni, what do you think of the curriculum? Give your feedback. Because at the end of the day, keep the students happy, we work well, you guys get good marks, and then everyone's happy as a whole.
And just one point in terms of, again, I have a different perspective on the quick win thing, because for me, I think where possible, it might be logical to have some quick wins as, it's the, the little pebble that gets thrown from the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
It's got to start from somewhere, and it builds that impetus, that kind of, it grows and bigger, and it actually by the very fact that you're getting some of these quick wins, you can use to highlight what it's what needs to actually happen. And I just think it would be useful, particularly when you have some quick wins, some easy wins that cost nothing, that add no extra workload, and deliver a taster of what could be achieved if we go big bang on it in the long term. So.
Definitely.
Okay.
You can rest your arm now, Bill.